Walk into any auto parts store in America and look at the shelf. FRAM oil filters on one row. Autolite spark plugs a few feet away. Raybestos brake pads, Centric brakes beside them. Trico wiper blades and Anco wiper blades sitting right next to each other, apparently competing for the same dollar. Cardone remanufactured parts in the back. 7 names, 7 logos, 7 price tags. It looks like a free market. It was a single company. Every one of those brands belonged to one corporation, and in September of 2025, that corporation collapsed into one of the largest auto parts bankruptcies in American history, owing roughly $11.5 billion with about $12 million left in the bank. Its founder is now under federal indictment, and almost nobody standing in that aisle had any idea. The company was called First Brands Group, and until it filed for Chapter 11, you had probably never heard the name in your life. That was by design. First Brands never advertised to you. It never needed to. It owned the names you already trusted. It started in 2013 in Ohio, founded by a man named Patrick James under the name Crown Group. In 2014, it bought Trico, the wiper blade company. Then it kept buying. By the time it collapsed, First Brands reported roughly $5 billion in annual sales, employed about 26,000 people worldwide, and controlled more than 20 consumer brands across filtration, brakes, spark plugs, wipers, fuel pumps, remanufactured parts, and towing equipment. If you have replaced a part on a car in the last 5 years, there's a very good chance you handed money to this company without knowing it existed. Here is why that matters. The entire premise of walking into a parts store is choice. You compare 2 wiper blades. You pick the filter with the better reputation. You pay a little more for the brand you trust. But when both wiper blades belong to the same parent, and the trusted filter and the budget filter roll off the same production line in the same building, you are not choosing between competitors. You are choosing between price tags on the same corporate ledger. And the strangest part of this story is not that one company owned them all. It is how that company paid for them, and what federal prosecutors now say was hiding behind the paperwork. If this is the kind of thing nobody tells you in the parts aisle, subscribe. Because this is what every video on this channel does. Start with what was actually bought, because these were not invented brands. These were American names with real history, and that history is the reason they were worth putting on a shelf. FRAM was founded in 1932 in Providence, Rhode Island, by 2 chemists named Frederick Franklin and Edward Oldham. They invented a replaceable oil filtering element, and they built the company name out of their own surnames, Franklin and Oldham, FRAM. In the beginning, they were making about 10 filters a day. By 1936, their filter was going onto Studebakers straight from the factory. Autolite goes back even further to 1911 and produced its first spark plug in 1936 in Fostoria, Ohio. Ford bought the Autolite name in 1961. Then, in 1972, the United States Supreme Court ruled that Ford had to sell it on antitrust grounds. That is the actual reason Ford's own house brand today is called Motorcraft. A Supreme Court decision separated Ford from Autolite, and Autolite spent the next 50 years passing from owner to owner, and it has been the official spark plug of NASCAR since the year 2000. Raybestos dates to 1902 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, founded by 2 men named Arthur Raymond and Arthur Law, and it was their company that developed the woven brake lining in 1906. Cardone spent more than half a century as a family remanufacturing business in Pennsylvania before it was absorbed. Now watch how fast the collection was assembled. In 2019, First Brands acquired FRAM and Autolite together, buying them out of the holdings of a New Zealand billionaire. In 2020, it acquired Brake Parts Incorporated, which brought Raybestos, and Champion Laboratories, which brought Luberfiner. Later that same year, it acquired Centric Parts, which brought StopTech. In 2023, it took Cardone and the towing brand group that includes Reese, Drawtight, and Tekonsha. A century of independent American manufacturing, consolidated into one corporate parent in roughly 4 years. The obvious question is where a company nobody had heard of found the money to do that. And the answer is that it did not have the money. It borrowed the money, and a great deal of what it borrowed never appeared where lenders could see it. To understand how First Brands fell apart, you have to understand one boring piece of finance, and it is worth 90 seconds of your life. When a company sells parts to a retailer, it sends an invoice and waits 60 or 90 days to get paid. That waiting is expensive, so the company can go to a financier and sell that invoice today for slightly less than face value. The financier collects the full amount later and keeps the difference. This is called factoring. It is completely legal. Millions of businesses use it. The problem is what it looks like on paper. Factoring is often recorded as a normal trade transaction rather than as a loan. So when a lender examines the balance sheet, that money does not show up as debt. And First Brands ran an enormous amount of its business through this channel. Court filings indicate roughly $2.3 billion in factoring obligations and another $800 million in supply chain financing, sitting outside the balance sheet on top of roughly $6 billion in ordinary loans. Prosecutors allege it went far past aggressive accounting. According to the federal indictment, the same invoice could be sold more than once. In one example described by prosecutors, a genuine invoice worth about $8,900 was allegedly sold to one financier as though it were worth about $17,000, and then 3 days later sold to a second financier as though it were worth roughly $463,000. Same invoice, same parts, more than 50 times the value. And these were not small-time lenders getting taken. The investment bank Jefferies had roughly $715 million of First Brands receivables sitting inside one of its funds. The Swiss bank UBS had more than $500 million of exposure and moved to wind down the funds involved. A joint venture backed by a major Japanese bank claimed exposure of around $1.7 billion. An equipment financing firm was left holding master lease obligations of roughly $1.9 billion. Some of the most sophisticated money in the world lent against those invoices, and the money is gone. The unraveling started in the summer of 2025, and it started with a routine request. First Brands went to the market to refinance about $6 billion in debt. The lenders asked for a standard document verifying the quality of the company's earnings. It was promised. It never arrived. The refinancing collapsed. Within weeks, the company's senior loans, which had been trading near full value, fell to roughly 36 cents on the dollar. On September 28, 2025, First Brands filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the Southern District of Texas. A company with $5 billion in annual sales had about $12 million in cash. In the hearings that followed, one financing creditor told the court that up to $2.3 billion had simply vanished. When the company's own attorney was asked in open court whether First Brands had received nearly $2 billion, he answered that they did not know. The accounts that were supposed to be holding that money, he said, contained zero. The court appointed an independent examiner with a $7 million budget. His team reviewed roughly 14 terabytes of company data and interviewed dozens of witnesses. His interim report identified approximately $1.4 billion in invoices that were fabricated, repeatedly pledged, or never actually transferred, and roughly $720 million in transfers to the founder or to entities he controlled. On January 29, 2026, Patrick James and his brother Edward were arrested in Ohio and charged in a 9-count federal indictment. The charges include wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering conspiracy. Patrick James also faces a count of running a continuing financial crimes enterprise, which carries a potential sentence of life in prison. Prosecutors have described the operation as functioning like a Ponzi scheme, with new borrowing used to pay off older lenders. Both men have denied the charges and are presumed innocent. Their attorneys say the government has not proven its case, and the court-appointed examiner specifically noted he did not find documents showing that Patrick James personally manipulated the invoices. Trial is currently set for 2027, but $11.5 billion is an abstraction. Albion, Illinois is not. Albion is a small town in Edwards County in the southern part of the state. For decades, it was home to Champion Laboratories, a filter plant. On February 23, 2026, that plant closed permanently. Reporting on the closure puts the number of jobs lost as high as 1,000. Workers there had anywhere from 2 to 43 years of service. A sale that would have saved the plant fell apart at the last minute. And here is the detail that closes the loop on everything you have just heard. According to a worker from that facility, the Albion plant produced FRAM filters, Champion filters, Luber Finer filters, and private label filters for other companies, under one roof, on the same lines. The brands you were carefully comparing on the shelf, weighing one against the other, deciding which one deserved your money, were coming out of the same building in the same small Illinois town. Albion was not alone. Brake Parts Incorporated cut 389 jobs in McHenry, Illinois. More than 1,200 jobs went in Ohio, across Tiffin, Bowling Green, Greenville, and the Cleveland headquarters. Kansas, Texas, and Tennessee took their share. Then came the sale. FRAM, Autolite, Trico, and Anco were sold as intellectual property to a Memphis filtration company called Premium Guard. The price was $25 million, plus a small percentage of future sales. $25 million for some of the most recognized names in American automotive history. The others did not even get that. Raybestos was wound down. Centric and StopTech were wound down, ending a performance brake name that had existed for roughly 27 years. Cardone was wound down, no buyer at all. The Carter fuel pump business sold for about $50 million, saving roughly 600 jobs. The towing brands went for $64 million. Now here is where I have to be straight with you because a lot of people are getting this wrong online. None of this proves the parts on the shelf are suddenly junk. There is no established evidence of a quality collapse. Someone recently cut open new FRAM filters and found them well built. What is real is this. When a brand is wound down instead of sold, the warranty behind it goes with it, and the number of genuinely independent competitors in your parts aisle just got smaller. There is one last twist. In June of 2026, Premium Guard went back and bought the Albion filter production lines, along with legacy FRAM equipment out of Ohio. Jobs are coming back, not 1,000, closer to 200. The lines that made the brands are running again under an owner most Americans have never heard of, in a town that already learned what happens when the parent company is a mystery. The Federal Reserve gestured at all of this in its own financial stability report, warning that unexpected losses can come from opaque off-balance sheet funding arrangements. That is central bank language for what you just watched happen to a shelf of household names. So the next time you stand in that aisle and feel good about choosing the better brand, remember what you are actually looking at. 7 logos, 7 price tags, 1 ledger, and a small town in Illinois that made a great many of them, right up until the money ran out. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe, because we take apart one more comfortable American assumption every single week.